Hi, welcome back. Peter Drucker, in his classic work Management that I mentioned early on, raises the issue of time as a critical concept. So this notion of present and future, short term, long term, and so on. It might feel obvious, but it's good to just specifically think about this time as a critical concept for a moment before we move forward. And basically time is inherent in management because decisions that we make as managers are designed for action, and actions by and large are aimed at future results. So in that sense, management lives, of course, in the present. There are present issues, a present business to be run. But managers also live in the future. And sometimes that raises some challenging issues for us. In this course, it raises a bit of a tension because to some extent we have to think about dealing with the present business base while dealing with future issues. We can't be so kind of future oriented that we see this great opportunity out there, and if we could just get there, then we will kind of outsmart our competitors and conquer the market. There's no use doing that if we're going to go bust today. But by the same token, if we're focused just on the present, and that is our natural tendency, we can miss opportunities for the future. And then slowly but surely, things change around us and our competitive position gets eroded. A nice example of this actually is the Apple iTunes store. You may or may not know, but about 8-9 years ago, the music industry was kind of stuck on this issue. They knew that digital was coming, but they weren't sure how to kind of protect the digital intellectual property. And so they never really moved. They literally got stuck. Apple saw an opportunity and they decided to take advantage of it. And as of today, Apple is now the largest single retailer of music in the world through their iTunes store. Now it's important to emphasise this didn't happen overnight. Steve Jobs didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I've got this great idea and let's do it tomorrow. There was a coming together of factors that kind of laid a foundation of possibility, if you like, that introduced the iPod, the portable music player. Wireless was starting to catch on and fast networks. Standards had been introduced around music standards and interconnectivity and so on. Hardware was reaching a stage where it could actually provide the processing power to handle things like music and video and so on. So all these things were coming together, but the key thing was that the company saw some possibilities. They saw that in the future, maybe 2, 3, 4 years down the road, they could actually bring in something quite special that not only represented an incremental movement in the way that the industry was evolving, but in fact represented a revolution. Basically a complete discontinuity away from the idea of CDs in stores to be able to sit at home, mix and match, select and choose, buy tune, buy album, whatever. And of course all the peripheral things that we now really take for granted, the artwork, the fact you can get little videos that go with the music downloads and so on. So basically they changed the rules. They essentially reinvented a sector. That was, I think, a very impressive strategic marketing move on the part of the company over those several years. And in fact, the chart that's come up will show you that there's been just huge dramatic growth. Maybe around mid-2010, they had crossed the 10 billion song download threshold. And interestingly, in terms of growth rate, year on year, the number of tunes being sold through the iTunes store is still increasing at quite a healthy annual percentage rate. Okay, well that's by way of illustrating this idea of getting the timing right. What some people call this strategic window of opportunity. And I kind of envisaged it as a sliding window over time. If you come in too early, you can be ahead of your time. If iTunes had been introduced too early, it might have been a great idea, consumers saw the opportunity, but the technology, the computing power and so on wouldn't have been there quite to support it. But self-evidently, if they'd come in too late, others would have got there and they would have missed that opportunity as well. So figuring out where the strategic window of opportunity is, how wide or narrow, where it is relative to today, is a very important aspect of good strategic marketing. So I guess a key skill that I want you to develop as we go through this course is to learn to discern when you are in the strategic window of opportunity. And again, you have to then decide, does this mean more radical change? Is there a chance to actually change the way that this industry operates? Or does it lead us to more incremental changes, which are the right ones given all the circumstances? There's no right answer to this. It depends on the industry, the time, the customer base involved, the technologies involved, and so on. But the important thing is to be thoughtful and try to discern, as I say, where you think you are in the strategic window of opportunity as it applies to your particular business. Okay, so a core premise of this course, I suppose, is that there may be tried and true approaches that you're familiar with the other courses that you've studied, and they're an important foundation. But it's possible that they'll be less effective in the years that are ahead of us. We're moving into a global environment that is quite uncertainty, not only in terms of things of recessions that come and go, but also on turbulence, the rate of change, the impact of technology. A lot of things are happening relatively quickly, and that seems to be a continuing phenomena. And so we really need to increasingly, as marketers, be operating our thinking at two levels. On the one hand, we need to be quite open-minded. Is there a little glimmer of something out there in terms of a technology or an interesting change in customer behaviour, perhaps a shift in underlying customer values, that if we project that forward a few years, will change things? If so, we need to respond and position ourselves to take advantage of that. On the other hand, just to re-emphasise, we need to remain grounded. Typically we have a business running today, the phones are ringing, customers are interacting, things are being bought and sold, things are happening. And I don't want you to become so visionary or grand in your thinking that you lose sight of managing today's business well. So it's a tension, it's in a balancing act, but if you can, in your thinking throughout this course, kind of move between those two facets and then try and strike an appropriate balance, I think you'll end up in a good place. Okay, so our approach, to summarise that point, remain open to dramatic, even ground-changing possibilities, but keep your feet firmly on the ground. We still have to pay today's bills, the cash flow still needs to come in, you still need to keep your CEO happy, the finances running well, and all the sort of important foundational aspects of a healthy business need to remain in place, while at the same time developing this capacity to look a little beyond the horizon to see what's coming. Kind of like a quote from Peter Drucker, I've been using him a bit, but I think he's a very insightful writer. And he says that for the manager, the future is discontinuity. And yet the future, however different, can be reached, of course, only from the present, from where we are now. So the greater the leap into the unknown, the stronger the foundation for the takeoff has to be. Okay, so he's saying be open to potentially quite major changes, but if we're going to move in that direction and bring about significant change, then all the more important to have a strong foundation for the takeoff, a well-established business base from which we can build. So the time dimension, says Drucker, gives the managerial decision its special characteristics. And in fact, I think it's what makes marketing fun. This constant juggling, the sense of the imagination on the one hand, but good grounded commercial perspectives on the other. Getting that mix right makes for, I think, some very satisfying work situations. And to finish this particular clip, just to remind you that for 353 throughout the course, we'll be typically focusing on a 3 to 5 year time frame. It's kind of long enough to allow your imagination to run out there a bit and your creativity, think about possibilities for the future and making genuine changes, but it's not so far out that it all becomes just a little bit elusive and kind of never-neverish. 3 to 5 years is a good planning horizon, I think, to guide the work and the projects and the things that you'll be working on throughout this course. Okay.